FIFA is currently staring at an invisible predator it cannot defeat. Not a financial crash, not a security failure, but a global exodus. This is a boycott born, not in boardrooms, but in the hearts of the fans. Across every continent, supporters are tearing up tickets and walking away, asking one devastating question: is the 2026 World Cup morally worth the price? Hotels are sitting empty, stadium demand is cooling, and the word boycott is no longer a fringe protest, it is a viral reality. But then, the unthinkable happened. Iran officially informed FIFA they will not set foot on American soil. For 92 years, World Cup history was sacred. Now that shield has been shattered. This has transcended the pitch. It is a high-stakes collision of geopolitics, border fury, and national pride. FIFA promised the world a bridge of unity. Instead, they may have built the most expensive monument to a divided planet. For years, FIFA sold the 2026 World Cup as the future of football. 48 teams, 3 host nations, the largest audience ever assembled for a sporting event. The United States represented money, infrastructure, television power, and commercial dominance. On paper, it looked unstoppable, but what FIFA underestimated was how quickly politics could consume the tournament itself. Because by 2026, the global political climate had already become deeply unstable. Immigration tensions, Middle East conflicts, border crackdowns, rising anti-American sentiment in multiple regions. And then came the images that changed public perception permanently. FIFA president Gianni Infantino appearing alongside Donald Trump repeatedly during the build-up to the tournament, then awarding Trump the inaugural FIFA Peace Prize. For many football fans around the world, that moment became symbolic, not because of football, because it reinforced the growing belief that FIFA had become too closely tied to political power, especially political power, and many supporters already deeply distrusted. And once fans begin believing a sporting event represents political alignment instead of global unity, the emotional connection starts collapsing very quickly. But then, things got worse, because suddenly the boycott stopped being online outrage and started becoming real-world action. At first, FIFA dismissed the backlash as social media noise. Angry hashtags, viral criticism, temporary outrage. But then, the cancellations started arriving. Thousands of fans reportedly backed out of travel plans connected to the World Cup. And what terrified organizers was not where those cancellations came from: Germany, the Netherlands, Brazil, but countries fully allowed to enter the United States. These were not fans blocked by visas. These were supporters making personal decisions to stay away voluntarily. That distinction matters enormously because once a boycott becomes voluntary rather than forced, it becomes much harder to stop. Human rights groups began issuing travel concerns for certain American host regions. Stories about airport detentions, immigration checks, and security fears spread rapidly online. Fans shared screenshots of canceled flights. Others posted videos explaining why they no longer felt comfortable attending. And across football communities, one emotional shift started becoming impossible to ignore. The World Cup no longer felt welcoming. It felt stressful, unpredictable, politicized. FIFA spent decades building the tournament into a celebration of global togetherness. But now the atmosphere around the event was becoming dominated by fear, anger, and distrust. And then came Iran. This is the moment the crisis became historically dangerous for FIFA, because no qualified nation has ever voluntarily boycotted a World Cup for political reasons in tournament history. Not once. Countries have been banned before. Governments have protested before. But a qualified nation refusing to participate on political grounds would be unprecedented. And according to reports, Iran informed FIFA it would not play group stage matches on American soil. Suddenly, FIFA faced a situation it literally has no rulebook for, because the tournament was never designed for this scenario. Iran's matches were scheduled inside the United States. Alternative venues were discussed publicly by politicians, but FIFA remained largely silent, and the silence itself created panic, because if one nation openly resisted the host country, what stopped others from escalating pressure too? This is what terrified FIFA behind the scenes, not necessarily a total collapse, but the normalization of boycott conversations around the World Cup itself. Once the word boycott stops sounding radical and starts sounding reasonable, the tournament's global image becomes dangerously unstable. And what FIFA didn't expect was that one policy change would actually make the backlash even more complicated. In May 2026, the United States reportedly eased part of its controversial visa bond requirements for World Cup visitors. On paper, this looked like a major win. Fans from multiple countries would no longer need to pay massive financial guarantees just to enter the country. FIFA quietly hoped the move would calm tensions. But the damage had already spread far beyond visas, because travel restrictions were only one piece of a much larger emotional problem. Fans were no longer simply worried about paperwork, they were worried about the environment itself. Airport searches, political hostility, immigration crackdowns, safety fears, and perhaps most importantly, the growing feeling that football supporters were no longer truly welcome. Even among fans with completely legal access to the United States, hesitation continued growing. Because once fear becomes emotional rather than logistical, solving it becomes infinitely harder. FIFA could reduce visa barriers, it could lower prices, it could increase marketing, but it could not easily repair trust once supporters emotionally disconnected from the tournament itself. The deeper problem for FIFA is no longer ticket sales, it is narrative control, because the organization no longer controls what the 2026 World Cup represents emotionally. FIFA wanted the tournament to symbolize football's global future. Instead, it increasingly symbolizes political division. The headlines are no longer about tactics, rising stars, or football culture. They are about protests, immigration, geopolitical conflicts, and fear. Even former FIFA president Sepp Blatter publicly encouraged supporters to skip matches hosted in the United States. Specifically, that is extraordinary. When a former leader of world football openly distances himself from part of the tournament, the institutional unity around the event begins breaking apart publicly. And this is why FIFA's nightmare is not cancellation. The matches will happen, the goals will be scored, stadiums will still contain tens of thousands of people, but a different kind of damage may already be irreversible. Reputational damage, emotional damage. So, the sense that this World Cup stopped belonging to the world and started belonging to politics instead. The boycott will not completely destroy the World Cup. The tournament will still happen, millions will still watch, the football itself will still produce unforgettable moments. But something fundamental has already changed. For decades, the World Cup represented escape, a moment where politics disappeared and football connected the planet together. That illusion is collapsing in real time, because the 2026 World Cup is becoming something much darker, a reflection of the modern world itself. Divided, politicized, distrustful, emotionally fractured, and years from now, people may remember this tournament less for the football, and more for the atmosphere surrounding it. The empty seats, the cancellations, the protests, the fear, the political tension. FIFA's worst nightmare was never a cancelled World Cup. It was a World Cup the world slowly stopped emotionally believing in, because once you take the soul out of the game, all you're left with is an expensive broadcast. The 2026 World Cup was promised to be a bridge between nations, but it may end up being the wall that finally separates the sport from its people. Maybe the football will save it for 90 minutes, but the silence from the empty seats and the absent fans will echo much longer than any goal. And perhaps that is the ultimate reality of the modern era. We didn't lose the World Cup to a boycott, we lost it to the realization that it was never really ours to begin with.